Hi, Ava. My name is Elena, and I'm here with Erin, and we're going to walk you through some of the changes that we requested in the first round of edits that may not have been made or that still seem inconsistent. We have some of these compiled in this document that we're going to be walking you through, and then we also are going to switch over to the staging site later to talk about some of the stuff that's easier to see on the live staging site. So first of all, at the top of this document, you can see that our first section here is about the footer. There are a few things going on here. For example, you see that on the left, right under Limitless Horizons Shield, we had requested the change in that phrase. And the phrase has been changed, but you can see that it's shifted too far to the right now, as opposed to being lined up under LHI. And then we also had requested a change, the addition of the Charity Navigator and the update of the Candid to 2025. That's happened. However, the project of the month is significantly smaller than both of those now, and all three of them are still pretty blurry. So we'd love to get those in better clarity. Um, the other thing that you'll notice is that when you input your email under the connect section here, there's no way to like see your full email. So after a certain point, it gets cut off and you can't even scroll to the right to be able to see it. So you kind of are like writing blind in the box, essentially up to that here. Then also, you can see that this email input is lower than the donate now button. I think it would make sense that they're on the same line, so that they're lined up. And then there's also kind of problems with things being aligned as well below that, like the address that's in Spanish under support is not in the same line as all of the rest of the things in that column. So that needs to be shifted over. Um, and I think that may be the case as well, going back to our seals. They're not, I don't know if they're really fully left aligned under Limitless Horizons Shield. So those are some of the things in this footer across the page. And then you'll also notice that the image, this kind of, repeating, I don't know what you call this in English, but like this image that we use in the footer is missing on several pages and or is different sizes across several pages. And then and then I think I can keep talking about the sliders, which continue to be inconsistent across the site. Sometimes they don't have arrows. And we can talk about that when we're on the live site as well. And then Erin's going to take over these next couple points.
Okay. So, hi Ava, my name is Erin, and yeah, so we just wanted to do kind of a side-by-side comparison of some of the issues that we're having so you can see what they are. But for the first round of edits, our edit was like that her face was getting cut off and distorted depending on the size of the screen that we're using or the zoom of the screen that we have. And so that was the edit. And now the picture is like left aligned and there's a big empty space here and there's text over their faces. So we would love for that to be corrected. And then also for the focal point to be their faces so that if you do zoom in and out, their faces remain like in the picture. This this one, sorry, this one is on our Get Involved page at the bottom. Okay, so in this first round of edits, we had said that this map didn't have enough context, especially just considering that it's on the homepage. So we thought it could say Guatemala, Quiché, Chahul. Guatemala is the big shape, then Quiché is the darker shape, and Chahul is the dot. And then in the second round of edits, for some reason, we just have this. We just have Quiche and Chahul. So I don't know what actually happened to the rest of map, but we would like for it to be this map just with labels.
I just had one kind of note about the donate page footer specifically. I should have added this up in the footer section, so I'm sorry about that, but you can see here that they have not been updated from the 2024 and this project of the month. So this is still looks like it did in the first round of edits essentially. So for whatever reason, that wasn't translated over to this page. And you can also kind of see here that the English address is slightly above the Spanish address. Like they don't seem to quite be on the same line. Then if we scroll down a little bit, you'll also see that one of the changes that we had requested in this last round was to make the logo bigger on the top of the donate page. And it is, I think it's a fine size now, but it's definitely blurry. So we would like that to not be as pixelated. It should look, you know, it shouldn't look pixelated, just like the images in the footer shouldn't.
Mhm. Okay. Um, so on the homepage, the first round of edits, we wanted to improve the spacing of basically like here and here, so that this was kind of more centered in the shape. And then in the second round, the shape is now cut off. So the spacing seems to improve, but then here at the top, this is cut off. And in the Figma file, like the shapes are visible. There is no, it's not getting cut off. So I just wanted to put that out. So in the first round of edits, we had this going across the homepage and it was moving very, very slowly. And so we had suggested to like stack them, which you did. But I think that there are 8 or 9 graphics. Right now we only have 5 and they're repeated. So we don't know where those other graphics are. The other thing that we were thinking is that it could just have an arrow. In the Figma file, you can tell that like, you have these images and then you can tell that there's another image here. So you can tell that you can like scroll. So I think it would be best, honestly, to like leave it maybe as it was before, but having like an arrow, so that people know that they can scroll. And that's what we have actually on the Colegio Horizontes page. And so I feel like to be consistent with that, maybe that would be a better solution. We're concerned that, we've lost quite a few of these images right here and they're oddly stacked in 5. Okay, so I just wanted to note that this is the Figma file of about us. I just wanted to note that these both have rounded edges and how it is currently is has like this blunt edge in the second round of edits, this second picture. So if you could round those edges, that would be good. In the first round of edits of these stats, we had just asked for a little bit of change in the text and kind of moving them over because they were weirdly spaced. And for some reason in the second round of edits, the font color has changed. So we would like that to go back to what it was. That is the same for numerous pages in the stats. So it goes from like this black color to the red color. And again, in the About Us page, in the first round of edits, we had asked for some changes to text and like consistency of fonts. And for some reason, in the second round of edits, we've lost all the color in these images. Also, I feel like this image is off. This shouldn't be a money image because this is a stat about literacy. So that should be different. Okay, so we're having some issues with the bios, how they are. From the beginning, we requested that the bio would be a picture with a name and their title. We had always requested that they take off the like fun fact that's in the light gray underneath. And when it says read bio, it shouldn't go like open below. It should actually flip over. That's kind of what we requested from the beginning and sent examples to Sunflower about. I'd say like right now, the first round, we requested that it looked like a slider and that it had arrows, which it doesn't. So those arrows need to be added because there are going to be other people or, just extra photos. You can see in the Figma file, there was also like, it looked like this. So you could see that there was a picture. You could see that there was someone else, so that it was an obvious slider. That's another option. But we would like it for it to like flip over. I don't know how possible that is, but we, this bio section needs some more work. With our timeline, we didn't really have a way of reviewing what the functionality would be of the timeline. And so we appreciate that you had added, the dot and that it advanced. One thing that we're seeing is between 2018 and 2019, the line doesn't continue. It interrupts here and is broken. And then it goes back to that in 2025. So those lines need to be continuous. We've also seen that the shape of the dot is sometimes an oval and sometimes it's a dot, like a circle. We had asked for this Form 990 to come up and for this 501c3 to come down, so that these could be aligned. And that didn't happen. So we would like for you to move that underneath the Form 990 and have the Form 990 come and be aligned with the independently reviewed financial statements here. Other thing is that we don't have the 2020 990 that is on our website. So if you could add in that, we'd appreciate it. Lena, do you want to talk about buttons?
Yeah. So we had also requested that there be consistency in the font size, the font, the hover action of the buttons, and of course the color when like before and after the hover, and that got corrected in some places but not in others. So there's still typically in the footer section of a few of the pages, like right above the footer, there's an image, and then there's a button on top of that image that's usually like a support our work button. And typically in those is where I've found that they still are black and the text is still underlined when you hover over it. So that still needs to be reviewed and updated really across the site. If you scroll down to the next page, you can see certain locations where that is happening. So for example, on even further on this page, that's happening. And then also on the news from the horizon, like on the news page, these three buttons at the top of the page are still black and the words are underlined when you hover over them. And there's one more example. I believe this is on the library page. That's also the case, is that the button turns black and the support our work gets underlined, as opposed to no underline and the button turning our burgundy upon.
Okay, and then so on the Get Involved page, to go back to the Figma file, these all had curved edges. I know that we had asked for there to be less negative space, which is why you had made these square to just kind of reduce some of that negative space. But now these photos have blunt edges. They don't have the curved edges like it is across the site. So we'd like for those to be curved. Also in the Figma file, we have these two texts in the same size. And in the second round of edits, we have this text really small and this second text really big, which looks kind of funny. So I'm wondering if you can change that as well. And then Elena, do you want to talk about photo size?
So we still are, having pretty substantial issues really with distortions when the site is zoomed in or out, when it's in like a side view, for example, like on a split screen view, or yeah, or just kind of if anything happens to the screen and it's not like 100% full screen view, there's usually some type of inconsistency that happens with the photo sizes and just the general layout being really distorted. And so we're actually going to jump over to showing you the site now so that we can kind of show you what that looks like for us in different example situations. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. And um, so, okay, so there's also I think one of a really big thing that we that we requested on the first round of edits was making sure, like we mentioned previously, that all the sliders were very obviously sliders. And I think that's really, really important for this very first landing page. So here, like, yes, you see these dots, but I think it needs to have, obvious arrows, which we did request and which weren't added. We've talked about this. We've talked about this image previously. So then another thing that's happening that, for example, if we compare to the Figma file, sorry, it's taking a second to respond here. But essentially these background diamonds should always be, fully visible. Like you can see that here, obviously, this burgundy one is cut off, but that's because it's up against the edge of the page. That's the same case here, but you can always see the tops and the bottoms, and that's true across all of the pages in the Figma file. But we're going to see in multiple locations, sorry. We're going to see multiple locations here, for example, where you see that it's cut off at the top and bottom. And I actually think that that wasn't the case in the previous round of edits. And you can see, even when I scroll out, that's the case. If I scroll really far in, starting at 125% resolution, I'm seeing it look like it should, I feel like. But the idea is that in the same way that the images shouldn't distort when the page size changes and stuff, I don't think, that these should distort either, so that it's always consistent. Just checking over here. like with this image, this is now working well, I believe, because you can scroll in and out and it doesn't change. Sorry. Screen is being very slow to respond. But essentially with this image of the school, it's now, pretty consistent, zooming in and out. And I think that needs to be the case across the site. So here, for example, you can, well, I guess this is just because this title is not shifted. Okay, we also talked about the changes in the footer. So moving on to the About Us page. So again, if I go to our, normal 100%, this is great that you can see, the full shape here. The problem that seems to happen is that when you scroll in and out, the text doesn't really move with the shape. I don't know if there's anything that you can do about that. And if not, maybe at 100% view, which is what we're at now, this could be like more centered in the shape, because there's a lot of negative space up here and then less down here. We talked about this image. We had requested that you change this because it looked like the slider was missing previously, which looks like that did happen. This is great because you can see the arrows at any size on this slider. We talked about this previously. So here is another example of, I'm not sure why on my screen, even at 100% zoom, this is cut off. So that needs to be fixed, or it needs to be moved over to the edge of the page or something. We've also talked about this again. This is really not obvious that there's a sliding action here, and we really never wanted this, light gray text here, and we also want this to flip around and be seen on the back and not just go down. And I guess if it's possible, we could still reduce even more the space, like you reduce the space here between, Colegio Horizonte staff and the leadership team, but there's still a bigger space here and a bigger space here. So if those could be consistent, that would be great. Okay. So there's construction logos. Okay, so moving on, just page by page. Again, this is potentially an option for that previous slider, like we talked about. These look pretty good on the full screen, but in a minute we'll get to the split screen view. Here's an example of the button, a weird hover action. And you'll see here that this image, this decorative image is wider on some pages and not as wide on other pages. So that needs to be consistent across the site. Again, these, ideally, I don't know if these could be any further away. They're kind of really close, but I think as long as it's consistent in every view, that's fine. Again, here, so for example, here there's no image separating this final image from the footer, and you can see the hover is again off. Yeah, so this is great because on multiple zooms, it looks pretty much the same, which is what we requested. So that's great that it's working here. See, I think it's just the inconsistency that sometimes the arrows on these sliders are far away, sometimes they're closer. So I think that what we just want is that it's consistent. So I think that was my issue on the previous page where I said they were really close. It's because they're at different, you know, they have different relationships to the sliders at different times. So I think we should just pick something and be consistent. Again, here you see at this bottom that there's no image, and here the hover is working, but there's no like separating decorative image, which is supposed to be in every single. Okay, so move over to our impact page. Great. Again, here we have the slider, arrows are again really close, unlike on the last page, so these should be consistent. We talked about moving this to right, to basically where this is, and flipping these right so that this is on the same line as the financial statements, and adding in our 2020 990. Which is missing. And then I don't know if this is going to be a slider at any point and if it's going to move automatically if we have more than 3, but if so, we would need it to either move, you know, automatically. I think that could potentially actually like have a slow slide, or you know, you just see a 4th name peeking out here so that you know that more are coming. Okay, here now we have this image back, but again, it's bigger, it's slightly different on different pages. So maybe we can make all of the pages look like this, you know, and this hover action. So here again, we have the incorrect hover action on the buttons. We have really close arrows again, but they're slightly less close than here. It's just kind of inconsistent. Like here, there's some space, here, there's no space. So these need to be. Again, incorrect hover action here on this button. Okay, and then I'm not sure if this update section. I think that if news and updates are going to take us to the same page, then there's no point in having a drop down here. Like if these are just going to be the same thing. I don't know if this is supposed to link to our blog. But if it's just going to be the same link, then I think we don't need it. Okay, let's move to the get involved page. Okay, so on the Figma file, we noticed that there was indeed a break right here, but then there shouldn't be a break in between this word. So like now empowerment circle is cut off from itself. So either we need all of these to continue across the page, or we need the break to be here before the word empowerment, and then the next line to start with empowerment circle so that it's not cut off. Erin also had mentioned this previously, that these images need rounded corners. And one of the things that we requested in the first round of edits that you can see, this is like, there's clearly an issue with this section. I mean, I think we can see the inconsistencies here. The image is the wrong size. This icon is the wrong size. It's shifted left. So that needs to, you know, match up to every other section, and also all the sections need those rounded edges as they previously. Again, we have another cutoff shape here, even at 100% zoom. I'm not sure what happened. This is the footer image that we mentioned. Okay. And then on the donate page, we had mentioned this being blurry and the footer being inconsistent. Like these images need to be updated and need to be not blurry, and then this need to be on the same line. Okay, so there's no way to get away from that page now. Okay, so now I'm gonna talk a little bit about the different views. So for example, this mainly happens in a split view. I'm gonna kind of do a side by side. Um, okay, so you can see that, this different slider comes up. The thing that happens in split view, you'll see is that, like this is clearly now out of place. Um, and things seem to things shift around and change drastically at different zooms, basically. And what we see on the Malala Fund site is that their site is really consistent across any view. It's always the same layout, just like it zooms consistently in and out without drastically changing the design. Whereas we see that ours, when we zoom in and out, like for example, suddenly, we go from this design here, which is still kind of incorrect because this is like no longer associated with this shape, and then we just go to a totally separate, totally different design. And everything just looks kind of weird. The image here disappears. And this is actually really consistent with what we're seeing in the mobile view too. Essentially, like this kind of converts to mobile view. And so this is actually pretty much how it looks on mobile. And essentially what we, think is logical is that it should, in the same way that you fix this section, on most of the pages, things should consistently like zoom in and out without drastically changing in design. So for example, you can see what happens to the footer. And again, this is shifted left here in this view. I think, yeah, the issues that we see in this view are the same issues that we have in the mobile view. So we can just more or less that's the main comment, is just like how can we make sure that across different sizes and zooms we're getting consistent design, right? So here again we can see that this was an issue that we were having in the first round of development where these arrows start overlapping images at different zooms. So you can see that. Yeah. And apparently these are not the same size. So I think it's this kind of attention to detail and consistency that we're looking for just in general, right? I think those are our biggest takeaways, is just like to really maybe play around with it and make sure that at different zooms on different screens and everything, that those changes are being made and are working at all different levels of zoom on all different screen sizes, and that like little inconsistencies can be can be addressed, like moving this to be under this and things like that. Not having this be indented left here. So yeah, is there anything else you want to say, Erin, before I stop screen sharing?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it. Thank you, Ava, for working to fix this. And yeah, let us know if you have questions after viewing the video, and we'd be happy to jump on a phone call. Okay, bye.